Alright, well now we're over in the tool room. I'm going to be doing a European style mount on this deer. Now for the next part of this process, I just have an X-Acto knife, plenty of blades. Anytime I drag this blade across bone and it dulls it up, you just switch it out for a brand new one. These cost almost nothing. So get yourself a pack of these. It doesn't take a very big knife to do this. Now remember that as you're removing this, that the more you remove right now in this step, the less you have to boil off. And the less you have to boil off, the less time it has to spend in the water. And the less time it has to spend in the water boiling, the less chance you have of making the skull weak. So you want to take your time during this part of the process, get all the flesh, get all the meat that you can carve off right now, and carve it off. Again, this is a rough process to watch, but you just got to keep working the jawline back to where it hinges behind the eyeball, and then cut that free, and then you can just peel the jaw off and continue to cut all the way back to the base of the skull to remove the jaw. Some people will save and boil the bottom jaw to go with their European mount. I'm not going to be doing that. Alright, this is what I'm left with. I like cleaning the skulls this way. Basically, as much meat as I can cut off, I can cut off. I got the eyeballs out of it and everything. There are going to be guys that's going to say, you can just chuck the whole head in there and boil it off. But for 20 minutes of my time, a couple utility blades, I drastically reduce the amount of time that I have to boil this and spray it. So I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to soak it in some dish soap and water while we run to Walmart to get a couple things.
Do I rinse off the head too?
No, just let it fill in there.
Right.
So why am I just using dish soap? I'm using dish soap right now for the same reason that you want to clean off your dishes. It's a degreaser. Whenever you're trying to whiten a skull, what you're trying to do is to remove all the grease that you can, whiten that skull as much as possible. So letting it soak and then eventually boiling it in dish soap helps remove the grease and helps get that white color that you're trying to achieve. Watch that your flames don't come up over the edge, because they can burn the bottom sides of those horns. So make sure that whenever you're doing this, the flames don't come up out of there.
If you don't want to be in it, you have to leave. About your
So after you let it boil a while, when you bring it up and you start to see the skin peel, that's when you should take it completely out. You don't want to overboil it because the nose piece could fall off. So after you see that skin peel, then you're going to want to pressure wash it. That's the next thing we're going to do, is we're going to pressure wash it. Now, you should really be putting on clothing that you don't mind getting pretty disgusting. I'm going to get wet, but I did change my clothes a little bit. But this next process is going to throw a bunch of water everywhere, and I'm going to try to get every single crack, every single dimple, every single part of that as clean as possible. And then I'm going to use a pair of forceps and try to pick and pull everything out of there as I possibly can. During this process, you want it to get as clean as possible. Now that we have it mostly clean, we're going to just start picking and pulling at the different parts of cartilage and anything that you can pull out of this thing. Okay, so you're going to want to get a screwdriver here. You're going to want to go in through the ear canal. There's an ear hole. You're going to lodge down in there, work it loose, and break it out, or you'll never be able to completely clean it. Do that on both sides and punch all the way through the skull. Alright, so after the skull gets pretty clean, there's still a couple pieces here and there, but what I'm going to do is I'm going to douse it in 40% by volume hydrogen peroxide, but to keep the horns from fading, I'm going to wrap them first in saran wrap and electrical tape, because I'm then going to pour this water out, make a mixture with 40% by volume peroxide in it, and then I'm going to reboil the skull, and that should loosen up anything that's left on here while coloring it at the same time. Get it really tight around the base of the antlers. Just to keep them out of the dye. And wear gloves when you're putting this on. So I got it covered in that developer. I'm just letting it sit in the sun while this heats up. As soon as that reaches a boil, then we'll cut it off, set it in there, let it simmer for 10 minutes. It should come out much whiter than when it went in. All right, it's been 10 minutes. Let's take a look. First look. Looking very clean. Okay, so now I got it washed back off. Now we're just going to sit it out here in the sun, let it dry. It'll become more white as it dries out. Again, you don't have to strive for perfection. There's going to be some oils that come through in the skull. There's you're not going to get the teeth perfect, but you also don't want to overdo it, because if you do, then the skull becomes way too brittle. So we'll let it dry for a little while, and then we'll check in to see if there's any touch-ups that need to be made. And there he is, all dried up, really nice and white. I got the display offline through Mackenzie Taxidermy. I can leave a link down below. The one thing about this process that I have to tell you is that it really is a labor of love. I mean, this has to be something that you enjoy doing. If not, there's plenty of taxidermists out there, plenty of guys that do this on the side that can do it for relatively cheap. It's an alternative, and obviously it's an alternative to display your trophy without having the cost of a shoulder mount. And like I said earlier, there's all kinds of different ways that you can do this. There's not necessarily a right way or a wrong way, but this always turns out well for me. It always whitens the skull really well. It never leaves the skull brittle, and it doesn't take, I think the whole process from start to finish ran a little bit under 2 hours. Also, when you're finished, what you can do is you can go out and get some sort of hardwood floor cleaner like Mop and Glow, and you can apply that to the skull, and it leaves a nice shine and a pleasant smell. You know, it's the middle of October now. We're going to start to get into the rut, and I wish all you hunters out there the best of luck filling your freezers. And if you get an opportunity to clean a skull like this and you use this method, let me know. I hope it helps someone out. Thank you.